Italy that we're seeing getting used to life with a new government. As Greeks welcome in Lucas Papadimos, we'll ask two leading figures from either side of the political divide if the former ECB vice president has the skills and the support to fix Greece. We have a former PASOK party finance minister and the economic spokesman for rival New Democracy joining us live in just a couple of minutes from now. Stay with the Pulse. And so, as we were telling you, it's not just Italy seeing in a new government. In Athens, new Prime Minister Lucas Papadimos has been sworn into power, and over the weekend he held his first cabinet meeting. This week they'll meet with the IMF and EU to discuss the latest bailout, and on Monday Finance Minister Evangelos Venizelos plans to present a new budget. So the question is whether any of this is going to be enough to fix Greece. Well, in a moment I'll be speaking to Noti Mηταράκη. He's in the studio with me now. He's the alternate head of economic policy for Greece's New Democracy Party. First, so I want to go live to Athens and speak to Yiannos Papantoniou. He's the country's former Greek finance minister. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, gentlemen, both of you. But Yiannos, let me begin with you. Is the appointment of Lucas Papadimos a positive step for the country?
I think Lucas Papadimos is an excellent choice for being the country's prime minister in these times of crisis, and because I think he will secure the sixth tranche as well as sign the loan. The problem is that the political parties that support him do not really support him. The composition of the government is excessively large, is not the right one, and moreover the time limit of 3 months to ahead of the elections does not give him sufficient time to promote real reforms which are necessary to get the economy out of the crisis. So the danger is that this is a really transitional service government, a pre-electoral government, that will do all the right things so as to secure the loan, but will be unable to promote the real reforms that the economy has absolutely is absolutely requiring to promote growth and get the economy going to recovery path. So
yes.
The problem is, and the question is, whether Lucas Papadimos will be strong enough to surmount this opposition from the parties and proceed to real reforms.
Mr. Papantoniou, you mentioned, you raised a number of points there, but let me focus on really the immediate challenge, one of his main tasks, which will be to implement the reforms as quickly as possible in order to access the second bailout package and indeed the next tranche of aid that Greece has coming to it. How quickly will Mr. Papadimos be able to implement these reforms, given the political difficulties you describe?
Exactly, this is the problem. He will be judged by events. My feeling is that he will try, but the question is whether PASOK and Nea Δημοκρατία will be able to open a front in order to proceed to these reforms if elections are going to be held on February 19th and the election date is fixed. So it all amounts to whether Papadimos wins over the political parties. It's a game, it's a fight that he will have to endure, and I hope he succeeds.
Right.
And most of us will in Greece who believe in Greece's exit from the present crisis and Greece remaining in the euro will support him.
All right, well, with that in mind, let me then come to my guest right here in the studio, Mr. Noti Mηταράκη, a member of the Democracy Party. Is your party going to work with or against Mr. Papadimos?
Mr. Papadimos has our full support. But by design, as Mr. Papantoniou said, it's a transitional government. It has a specific objective to release the loan and execute the new loan agreement on the 26th of October EU Council decision. This decision is inevitably in our mind and we will fully support it. What is critical now, however, is that we have, after the elections in February, a strong government with a clear reform mandate to implement a program which is credible. The program up to now had not been credible. It was creating a death spiral for the Greek economy, and as a result, in every tranche, the deviation between the results of the Greek government and the program was widening. We need to ensure that the new program promotes recovery of the economy, while curtails public expenses, does the structural reform so that the economy becomes balanced. We have lost that balance, and as a result of that, we're suffering the consequences of the crisis.
I suppose the immediate task right now is to implement the reforms, the conditions on the next tranche of money that Greece desperately needs.
Absolutely.
Before it runs out of cash to pay salaries and to keep the government running by about mid-December. And I suppose that is the immediate challenge, isn't it? So are you going to do everything you can, will your party, support Mr. Papademos wholeheartedly in implementing the conditions the EU is imposing, the conditions that come with this cash?
Of course, we're fully supporting the 26th of October decision. What we've seen as an outcome from the European Council, we're fully behind. What I'm worried about is 2012 and 2013. We need to be a responsible borrower, and we need to make sure that the economy recovers to be able to repay its debt, which is not the case now.
Okay, well, Mr. Papademos, you have something on your mind, so let me bring
yes,
you in. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are very simple. Implementing the October 26th decision is a formal procedure, just signing the loan agreement and another set of documents. The real questions are different. The real question is whether the government will proceed aggressively into privatizing the economy, whether the government will proceed aggressively in closing down unnecessary public entities, in deregulating the economy, in liberalizing the markets and opening up closed professions. A number of things must be implemented now. The question is, will the Papademos government be strong enough to surmount the party's opposition and proceed to these changes before the election time in early February or not? Or we shall have to wait for another 3 months. My feeling is that the Greek economy cannot wait. There is no time to lose. And my fear is that this government will evolve into a pre-electoral service government, unable to proceed real reforms, and signing up documents. Signing up documents is not enough.
Well, then let me put some of your points let me put some of your points to Mr. Mηταράκη in the studio there then. Given the extent of reform that Mr. Papademos is describing, you're talking about deregulation, you're talking about liberalizing the market, you're talking about suspending 30,000 civil servants. These are big tasks. Doesn't Lucas Papademos' government need to be in power for longer than 3 months to see this through?
We felt that at the time of crisis, you need to strengthen governance. And strengthening governance means a democratically elected government that has a clear reform mandate. That's why we said the elections should happen early, in order to be able to do the things exactly Mr. Papademos was saying. When I was here in July, I was telling you that the government is not proceeding with privatization, they're not doing structural reforms, what they're only doing is raising taxes at an economy in a death spiral. Actually, that's what they kept on doing. We are fully behind privatizations, we're fully behind cartelling the public sector. This is our manifesto, this is our agenda, and that's why we want public support to implement it. We will support the Papademos government in the interim, and hopefully they will move on the right direction.
But are all these things, the point that Mr. Papademos, I think, is making is the time issue. Are you going to do it in the next 3 months?
For the next 3 months, Papademos is running the government, we are supporting it.
Yeah.
If the sooner we have elections, the faster will be a reform agenda. We have enough people for many years to give a clear mandate for reforms, and that's what's missing. Papandreou was elected on a redistribution agenda, but not with a reform agenda, and that's why the government couldn't last. We need to be honest with the people, tell them we need reforms, we need deep changes in the economy, and that needs public support.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your thoughts. Really good to have a discussion with both of you. Thanks very much again for coming on the programme, Mr. Noti Mηταράκη, alternate head of economic policy for the New Democracy Party, and of course Mr. Yanos Papademos, former finance minister of Greece.